Hi everybody and welcome back. Hopefully you're not getting sick of me. This is Brian and we're back here with yet another Fusion 360 tutorial. In this lesson, we're calling it I think lesson number 6, I believe. I'll be covering how to make a 2D drawing from a 3D geometry. So this is relatively fast. The dimensioning part is the thing that would take the longest, and I may not be completely thorough with that, but I will try to give you an insight into how to quickly capture the 3D geometry in a 2D format that you can then print out on a printer or send to somebody, that sort of thing. So I have in front of me this Mars rover beam that we draw a lot at Lehigh. We do a lot of mechanical testing on this, and then we optimize the beam and print it out and test it again. So it's a pretty good example of something that you might want to submit a 2D drawing for. So I have my design up. I've already drawn it. You can see it's made up of a whole bunch of different components and extrudes and cuts and all sorts of stuff. But the important thing is how do we go from here to a drawing, and that's going to be pretty straightforward. So once we have it complete, you're going to have to save it, give it a name and title. Fusion won't let you create a 2D drawing until you've saved the actual drawing first. Just FYI, as you draw things, if you go back and modify the existing part, the next time you open the drawing, it will update to reflect the most recent drawing. So the drawing and the part are actually kind of linked together. All right, so where do we get started? After we draw what we need to draw and save it, you're going to come up here to the top left corner and you're going to shift to drawing. So I'm going to go down here, hover over that for a second, and I'm going to say from design, the Mars rover part being my design. It highlights the design that you want to do. If you have multiple things, you might have to select multiple things, or if you have multiple things, maybe you only want to draw one of them. In this case, where it says full assembly, that would be if you had multiple parts that are all linked together. We'll cover assemblies in the coming tutorials, but in this case, it's just a single part, so it's not actually an assembly. So you can leave that defaulted to checked off. Destination, we're going to create new, so we don't want to add this to an existing drawing set. We're going to create from new. Template, we're going to go from scratch. The standard we're going to use, I'm actually going to switch to the ASME standard, which gives me sheet sizes that are pretty common. So ASME units, this was drawn in millimeters, so I'm going to output to millimeters. You could draw in millimeters and then output to inches, and then your dimensions, even though you drew it in millimeters, will be in inches. So Fusion will automatically do kind of the math or conversion for you. And then lastly is sheet size. This is depending on the size that you want to output to. I want to stick, I think, to a standard 8.5 by 11. That's a letter size piece of paper, not to the 11 by 17. But just note here that the first number, 8.5, that would be your X direction, so across this way, and the second direction, in this case 11 for A, size A, would be the height, right, or the Y direction. So that would be short this way, long this way. I actually want my page to be landscape, so I'm going to choose the 11 by 8.5, and then I'm going to click OK. When you do that, you'll notice it opens up a new tab up here, and then brings up the drawing template, and it sets you up to place your base view here right away. Now I'm going to hit escape to eliminate that. You'll see that there is a title block that Fusion drops in here. This grabs the folder that you're in your data panel where it's saved, and the title of the file that you're working from here. And it will automatically drop in your name. That's based on who's logged into Fusion and the date here. And then you would have to add scale and stuff like that. In this particular case, obviously it's good practice to have a title block, but I think it's going to get in our way. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and hit the delete key to eliminate it. You can always add that in if you want later. All right, so I'm starting with my blank piece of paper. You can see you have your borders here. The first thing we do, come over here to the top left corner. The first item here is base view. So I'm going to click on that. And when I do that, it's going to open up this menu on the right. And it's saying the orientation that it's selecting for the base view is front. And so typically you would do front, top, side over here, right? But you can choose to start from another base view. So if you choose to do from your top, you'll see that it opts for the top view versus the front view. But I'm going to do standard drawing format here. So I'm going to start with the front. And I'm going to go ahead and place my front view here. Okay. You can see how it defaults to certain things. So the style, it's going to be visible with the hidden edges shown as dashed lines. So that's pretty normal. Tangent edges, you can see how it's going to change your edge visibility, things like that. You can modify these things. So under scale, I'm going to click on this. It's actually going to go off my screen, but I'm going to choose 1:1. You'll see that that makes this full scale. And then what I can do is I can kind of click to position this where I want it. Once I'm happy with these settings, I'm going to click OK, and that's going to lock in that base view. Now what I'm going to do is I want to do my top view and my side view, and I'm actually going to do a section view to kind of show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to click to come back up here to the top left corner where it says projected view. I'm going to choose projected view, which is the second icon over. It says to select my parent view, and I'm going to start with this guy. And then if I start to go in this direction, it's going to give me my top. If I go below it, it's going to give me the bottom. If I go to the right, it's going to give me the right view, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to start with my top view. And then I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to do my right view. And then, because it's so fancy, I'm going to drop in my isometric view in the top corner, just so we see what's going on. Once I have all my views, I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. And you'll see the minute you hit escape, it automatically defaults to whatever settings you had for your parent view. Now you can go in, like I think this is an incredibly complicated drawing to look at with all those hidden edges on. So I can go ahead and click on that, or rather double click on it to select it. And instead of style from parent, I'm going to choose just the visible edges and then click close. And that's going to default that to the more easily, I think, viewable version of that. Once you place all these things, except for the isometric, the other two views are locked to my parent view. So if I click on my parent view once, I can click this gray box in the middle, and it allows me to reposition where these guys are in my paper. So you're not like locked into your exact location. When you first drop these in place, you can kind of modify where they go to move them around. So I might maybe move this down here a little bit. And I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to select this guy. I'm going to move him down a little bit, because what I'm going to do now is I want to create a section view through here so we can look at what this thing looks like from a side view. So I'm going to come up here to my tools, to section view. It asks me to select a parent view. I'm going to come down here, select this view. I need to show it the first point of my section line. So I'm going to hover over my midpoint, pull away from the outside a little bit, and I'm going to pull a straight line across here, like so. While I'm still there, I'm going to right click and choose continue. And that's going to show me a section view going through that middle point, and you'll see now it gives me the option to place that. So I place it there, and I can click OK, and it's now going to give me that section view with these crossed hatched lines showing me what this guy looks like if we were to cut this open and we're looking down on this side, right? So you see the thickness of that wall all the way through, and if I zoom in here, you can actually see that these are the holes. Hole, you see they don't have section lines through them. And that gives you the information you need to have. I can move my section label up a little bit closer so we know what it looks like. There we go. And so that's how we lay out the drawing. And once we have it, again, we can kind of like move all these things around. I can select my parent view here. This section line will move with it, and we're set to go. Really, aside from doing your title block, some other things that you can do is you see you have a detail view here. So you can say like, oh, I want to see like these screws, you know, at a larger scale. You could absolutely do a detail view of that at a 4:1 scale, so you can see that kind of zoomed in. So that's what that detail view is. You can add things like center lines to holes, which is good practice. So if I can use my geometry center mark here, so I'm going to choose that, and I can choose this hole to add that center mark to. I can choose that hole, and that drops those center marks in for you on those holes. You also have a center line that goes through these holes here, and so that would be done here. So center line, and here you have to choose like the two edges. So I'm going to choose that edge and that edge. It'll produce the center line for me, that edge and that edge, this edge and this edge. So it's adding in those things that help you kind of understand where things are. You'd also probably want to do center points for all of these holes along the way. There is a smart dimension tool here that we can use to add dimensions. So I'm going to choose that, and you can just go in and do from point to point, and start to give it some geometry scale here. I can go point to point here, and I can give it the width of this. And so this is how you would start to document the size of your part to be able to share with, and actually like this I might document over here because this is the more clear view to see that. And you can see Fusion is just selecting kind of these centers for you. So that gives me all of those numeric values. Obviously there's some ones I'm missing in places. Like I would be missing here. So this is kind of the trick, is how many dimensions do you need to create your part? And that's what you're kind of up against here. The other, under dimensions, there's tools. There's other tools under here as well. So under dimensions here, I can choose to label my circles. So I can click diameter, and I can choose this circle, and that'll give me a diameter for that circle. I can do radius here, and if I want to give a radius for the top edge of that, that's a radius of 3. I would also have to give a dimension for the height of those. So you see the kind of time you can spend adding those dimensions, but it's really easy. It's just literally clicking things that you've already done to create those dimensions. If you want to create a label, which is always good protocol, you can go ahead and click the text box here, and I can create a text box, and I can say like, this is my front view. Right? You can justify it so it's center justified. You can obviously change the size and the font. And then once you have it there, you can move it around just like everything else on the drawing. So all of these are options within the drawing. Callouts can happen with this leader line here. So if I want to give you information about, I don't know, the depth of a hole or something that isn't clear from a drawing, I can use the leader, and I can say like, I want you to give me a leader line from, oh, there it is, from there to there, and then it allows me to say like, hole depth 3 millimeters, so that I can start to do callouts there. So those are the main tools that you would use to do all of these things. You can insert an image here if you wanted to put a picture in of a finished something. There's symbols that you can add. If you wanted to like do specific callouts of tolerances, you can do that here with the symbol tool. So again, lots of options. I'm not going to get into all the detail. I just wanted to give you kind of an overview so you could show, you know, a view on a drawing or multiple views on a drawing to communicate your ideas. And then lastly, obviously, when you're ready, you can output these as a PDF. Line weights is up to you. That's drafted convention, so solid lines are going to be thicker than these dash lines. in this case, I would absolutely output with line weights. You can choose to open the PDF or not. If you click OK, it will just simply ask you where you want to save it, and you can save those things to wherever you want. So hopefully that's helpful. You may have a drawing exercise from one of your professors that would require you to like draw something and then print it out so you can cut it out by hand. This would be a great way to kind of output things at an appropriate scale, and then print them on a printer. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to cover this with you today. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Again, like everything else, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll see you at the next lesson. Thanks. Bye.